So the question is, what are the things early stage founders get wrong when they launch brands, when they want to scale brands? What do you think they get wrong?
So I think 2-3 things, Joe, what I've experienced with brands starting with say a limited budget and wanting to test the waters, right? एक तो they spread themselves too thin on multiple products, multiple creatives.
Yeah, like
And
launching
testing
with
too
a
many
larger portfolio, wanting to advertise all of it instead of just focusing on 1-2 hero products and scaling those.
Correct. So
Yeah.
simple hai, if your CAC is say 1,000 rupees
Yeah.
and your daily you're spreading that ad set budget between different creatives and products, 6-7,000 if it's spread between 3 products and 2 creatives each, you're not even getting enough traction, right?
Yeah.
I'll rather spend that 3,000 between 1 product and 3 creatives or more creatives and then scale it up on that. So at least my concept and my product validation will happen on one product and I'll get the initial traction.
I also think the understanding on building brand is very, very skewed. A lot of founders, I think, start investing behind getting like visual identity right, brand story right in the beginning. While these are important, initially just product marketing, concept based selling, right? I think get to a certain amount of transactions, acquire a certain set of consumers, and brand building is a journey, right? It's like evolving as a human being. It's not doesn't happen on day one. So for example, another thing which I always find is that we want to create a premium brand and we will not run offers and discounts.
Correct.
If your brand doesn't sell, nobody cares.
Yeah.
Right? It's like sitting at 100 transactions, it just doesn't matter. And if the category demands running offers, and imagine, right, you're launching in a market which is competitive, and who's going to buy your brand anyway? Why should somebody buy your brand?
Correct.
And the question of whether it's a discount brand or a premium brand comes in much later, right? But first just acquire consumers. I think that thinking also people get wrong.
Yeah, I think day one, so you don't need to solve for, yes, you have a broad idea in hand where you have to be, but the aim is to acquire those 1,000, 2,000 first set of customers with whatever way. And if the fit goes well and you get some repeat and encouragement, then you can solve for the brand slightly later.
I think also P&L. I think just a sense of how much money will it actually take. And everybody is starting out thinking that I'll hit a certain MRR and after that the VC will fund my business. What they don't understand is conversation to money in the bank is a 9-month to a 12-month kind of process, right? And to get there, you need to first get to a certain run rate, maintain that run rate, keep growing on top of that run rate, right? Demonstrate all the right metrics. Your retention metrics need to be right. There has to be some level of brand love which you have to show. You have to show a pipeline that from the valuation that you will enter, the VC has an opportunity of exiting at a valuation, which means that if suppose you hit an MRR of let's say 50 lakhs a month, the VC will not exit or be able to make an exit till you hit an MRR of 5 crores, right? But so what is that journey like? So these are all very difficult conversations, and for somebody to put faith and money behind your business, it takes a while, right? And in that journey, I think most of the time founders just run out of money because they haven't planned P&Ls. Like if you starting assumption is if your CAC is $1,000, right? Assume that you'll spend 1,500, and then see if you have that runway. Other costs, working capital, right? The other conversation that we were having, which is around simple things like at what volume does your monthly fixed cost become justifiable? Because that is also burn which is happening, right? You might operate at a lower ROAS, but at a higher scale, that costs get justified.
Yeah, so they're not able to actually calculate the absolute bottom line. So forget about the capex that has gone into the business, but there's say
monthly operating bottom
2 lakhs of operational cost between say project, salaries, office, etc. and whatever, right? If you only do 3 lakhs, 4 lakhs of sales, that's never going to be covered. But
It's
if you
always
do 6 lakh at a lower ROAS, that works better in terms of absolute bottom line or breaking even at an early speed. So,
and that also brings us to the next thing which I see happening. Everybody wants to do everything. Want to do SEO, want to scale marketplaces, want to do meta advertising, want to do Google advertising. Winning across all these different digital platforms and touchpoints require different strategies, different amount of investment. Just get one thing right first to begin with.
It's the same principle I was talking about earlier, right? One product,
Yeah,
focus
exactly.
on that.
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
have limited money, make
Yeah.
the best utilization of this, right?
Yeah.
And that's the problem, right? People go to these agencies and they sell you SEO we do, you should do social media also, you should
Yeah.
do something
Yeah.
also.
Yeah.
And then that's also the reason, like with a 1 lakh budget, everything is happening
Yeah.
and you don't have getting any
Yeah.
kind of results, right? So focus on one thing, do it better, get some learnings out of it, then you scale up, you can shift your revenues to other things or the money towards testing other things.
And when I think about it, the core of this is wrong understanding of the TAM in India. Everybody overestimates TAM. Right? Now, and there is enough data, enough information available as to what the right TAM size is, right? Like, and Kishore Biyani's framework of India 1, India 2, India 3, right? India 1 is your digital market. That number is sitting at 12 crore consumers, which translates to 3 crore households, right? Top 5% of that is 15 lakh households. Okay. Now, if you are a brand which is above a 50% premium from the category incumbent, that is your market. It's not beyond that. Certain categories, there could be exceptions, right? As in, there are certain high involvement categories where a lower income family will over invest behind something. So let's say kids education, right? They'll potentially want to, if a kid wants to become a graphic designer, they'll invest in a much more expensive laptop, computer, tablet, whatever be the case, right? But in general, day-to-day items, if you are more than 50% over-indexed of the largest incumbent, right, and especially like FMCG core categories, right, like soaps, shampoos, body washes, BPC, all these categories, that's your market. Everybody, all D2C brands are basically competing for these 15 lakh people. Right? Now, cut it by TG, 50-50 women, men, 7.5 lakhs, right? Cut it by age group. Suppose you're a brand which is 18 to 35. That number cuts down further to 25-30 lakhs.
No, so we are talking 15 lakh households, right?
Yeah.
So in that households, yes.
Yeah. So it cuts down even further. So eventually you are coming down to
No. What I'm saying is you have 15 lakh households. So there are 15 lakh women and 15 lakh men. So that number doesn't drop.
But so like cut it in half, that becomes 7.5. Right? So men and women, 15 lakh women. Cut it by age group. Right? That drops to 7.5 lakhs. Right? And then 50 brands at least competing for that 7.5 lakhs, right?
Correct.
How do you get to a place where you'll be able to acquire 1 lakh out of that 7.5 lakhs? You are competing with established D2C brands, global brands which have come into India, incumbent FMCG brands, everybody, right? So the market depth is really, really small, which is why you find that brands start capping out at a certain acquisition number, right? They'll be able to hit 10,000, 15,000 consumers, 20,000 consumers. After that, they start capping out.
That's where the other game comes into the picture, right? So, marketing we always say, right? Number one is sell more.
Yeah.
That's the objective, right?
Yeah.
You sell more to more people.
Yeah.
Or to the same number, you sell more quantity.
Yeah. Right? Consumption increase.
So that's where the whole portfolio and the retention play comes into the picture, right? If you have acquired 50,000 customers, let's say you are a protein brand, for example, and you have acquired a certain number. Now acquiring new customers is becoming a challenge because there's a certain market share in the play and there are certain incumbents which are already existing. So you are playing in your fair share and the category is going at say 10-15% and
correct.
If you are expecting a 100% growth or a 50% growth, then you'll ideally have to sell to the same set something more, right, beyond what they are regularly consuming. So what are the things you can add for those protein consumers and build on your portfolio so that your monthly or annual ticket size becomes double. That means you are getting 100% growth, or even if you are able to grow by 30%, that's a significant chunk. That's how the portfolio thinking has to be built once you acquire those brands.
Which actually is also the core of building the brand, right? As in, what are the guardrails of which categories the brand can play into?
Correct.
If you define it very narrowly, then you don't have equity left in expanding beyond categories. And protein is a very good example, right? If you look at portfolios of companies which sell protein, all of them have very similar product portfolios, right?
Correct.
Core protein powders, like which is whey, then plant, then there'll be BCAA, there'll be protein bars, and they just exist there. Right? Why can't somebody define a brand which stands for one dimension of fitness? that opens up opportunities where you can get into associated categories like fitness accessories, apparel, footwear,
Yeah.
and you plank your brand like that, right? So brand thinking essentially is not again about brand story. Brand story happens much later. It's also an execution in some sense.
Yeah.
But the strategy is that how am I able to acquire consumer, and with that same brand, how can I sell a wider range of product sets to that same set of consumers that we acquire?
Correct.
So if you define it myopically, you can't go anywhere.
Yeah, that's why say Mamaearth expands into so many categories
Yeah.
and builds on.
Yeah.
Versus say certain other brands
Yeah.
which have to restrict to certain products
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
that's how they are defined.
Like for example, I don't know, and Mamaearth, and again same set of investors, right? I don't know whether Boat can sell laptops. Will you buy a laptop by Boat? I don't know.
I think even the watches have not been successful.
Exactly, and that I honestly don't know the reason. But if a Boat launched a laptop, I would be audio maybe.
So both for me is audio.
Exactly.
Music.
So it's defined
That's
that way,
how
which
I
is a
feel.
good thing. But then you're also limiting where your brand can kind of go
So
to.
whatever into music they can play, but
Yeah.
maybe a laptop for audio video consumption is the multimedia laptop, maybe something what works for them.
I think another thing, structuring teams.
Hmm.
What capability do you need to have in-house?
Hmm.
What capability can you get from outside?
Hmm.
Right? And I have a view that the brand,
Hmm.
right, the core thinking around the brand has to be controlled by the founding team.
Hmm.
And I'll tell you why I say that, right? When you launch,
Hmm.
you launch with a certain thinking that, okay, either it's a personal problem that you solved through products which didn't exist, right? That's one way of doing it.
Sure.
There's some connection with some legacy, some provenance in some place. You belong to a certain area and you find products there which you want to take to the world,
Yeah.
right? Whatever that initial thinking was, that strategy on the brand should be controlled by the founding team.
Yeah.
Right? Now, execution of that should never be done by the founding team. Should always be given out to experts who can execute that on that brand. Right? Organic social media, the way it is today, which is primarily video driven, should be done in house. Okay, like set up a small team.
So basically, brand has to own the content. it
Brand
is
has to own the
publishing,
content, yeah, because brand has to behave like a publisher.
right? Yeah.
Imagine this brand is setting up a magazine which it is distributing on Instagram and YouTube,
Yeah.
right? And that content has to come from brand, right? This whole agency model where 24 posts and 48 stories, etc., nobody is watching those, right?
But depends. मतलब how it's obviously some agencies would be doing it better where the
Yeah.
brand thought has been put
Yeah.
right
Yeah.
with that set of people,
Yeah.
right? But
Like so, for example, in statics, right? Zomato does a very good job,
Yeah.
right? Because but it's always content.
correct.
It's not advertising. As in, you like that because it's moment marketing, it's content,
Correct.
and the format could be in video, non-video. I agree completely, right? Some of it could be video. Today, there's more video than static, and hence more production towards video.
I feel it's about the content that
Yeah,
engages,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
and
yeah.
the
Not
purpose
the-
of content is only three things, right? It's either to educate,
inspire,
entertain, or inspire, right?
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
what does your brand stand for?
Yeah.
Now, within that, static video are just formats or whatever, right? That you can play and maybe tomorrow we'll have something 3D
Yeah.
or something coming
Yeah.
in and all that.
Yeah.
But your genre has to be around this, and then you don't keep switching every third day because of something.
Yeah. Just because you've seen somebody else doing something.
I know as a protein
Yeah.
brand, you teach me something in
Yeah.
terms of fitness or food consumption.
Yeah.
Then I'll keep coming back to you with that thought.
Yeah.
I cannot be everything. Tomorrow I start entertaining.
Yeah.
Next day I'm inspiring you by running and something. That is where I think
build
the problem.
depth in content. Yeah, yeah. So own brand, own content, outsource everything else.
Yeah.
Because you need that subject matter expertise. Like for example, one of the things we commonly find, right? I want to set up a performance marketing team in-house.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough, right? You will hire somebody in performance marketing, you get a good resource, let's say at 80,000-90,000 bucks a month, a lakh a month, right? Now, do you have the skill set to supervise that resource?
Yeah.
Right? Do you have enough depth in understanding to supervise that, right? And it's not just the media buying, right? It's creative. Do you have enough depth to be able to understand, create feedback on good quality performance marketing creatives?
Not just depth, I think. So one, you should know the subject.
Yeah.
Two, you're working with limited resources, and
Yeah.
you are the biggest resource in the organization, right?
Where does your
Within
time go?
limited people.
Yeah.
What are you focusing on?
Yeah.
Are you looking at those Shopify numbers every day and
Yeah.
reviewing how many orders came, what
Yeah.
happening, or you'd work? So you remember we have these conversations with founders, right? And these are the 5 things I expect from you. While I do performance, while
Yeah.
I'll take care, you trust
Yeah.
me with that, it will be taken care of. But these are 5 things you have to get it done. It could be product, it could be, say, working, collaborating with influencer or content and all that, right? But that's how it works. You have to believe your partner agency in what they are doing.
Yeah.
You have to focus on your areas which are critical to the business at that point of time.
So this is a very interesting question, right? Now, the founder typically is the most valuable resource in a early stage startup,
Yeah.
right?
So what are the most valuable things for him
but
or her?
what is that, right? Like in some sense, I would over-index the founder's time on interfacing with consumers. Okay. Interfacing with consumers gives you a superpower which can translate into every other stream that you do, right? New product development,
Yeah.
current product enhancement, media strategy, content strategy, everything, right? Once
Correct.
you have that pulse, right? So for example, can a founder have 100 consumer conversations a month? It will be
Yeah.
time taking, right? You'll invest 15-20 minutes to have 100 conversations. You'll have to reach out to 300 people because only 1/3 of them will be willing to talk. It'll be highly time intensive,
Yeah.
which means you will not be able to look at whether all the 20 orders of today got dispatched or not. Somebody else will have to do that, but that's a far better use of your time.
Yeah.
Second, I would also get the founder to start interacting with the world. I think one of the mistakes I made, right, as a D2C founder was I had blinkers on, right? Despite having networks, right? I think because of our backgrounds, we knew people, there were people. I would just not talk. I was so involved in operations. If I had taken that time,
Yeah.
we were early, right? 2015, we were early. We were hitting MRRs of 15-20 lakhs at a ROAS of 10 back in the day, right? That was already a very investable business,
Yes.
right? But I didn't know that because I never spoke to people, right?
Yeah.
I didn't have a fair sense of what was happening in the category. I didn't have a fair sense of what was happening in the ecosystem,
Yes.
right? I didn't build relationships with category teams at Amazon, at Flipkart, etc. Right? The relationships which happened were sporadic because I knew people, some junior was in Amazon, so spoke to him occasionally, but it was never a working relationship.
Part of it also, I know your journey then,
Yeah.
right? So it was like self-absorbed.
Yeah,
We are happy, we are making
Yeah,
profit,
yeah,
this
yeah,
will
yeah.
gradually grow at a certain pace,
Yeah,
we'll do this
yeah.
and that. But obviously during that time,
Yeah.
if I tell you today, that time you were doing 30 lakh of business at 10 ROS,
Hmm.
and that's 2017.
That's crazy, right?
Right?
If you
Now-
think about it.
Huh. And that too
Yeah.
with
Zero resourcing.
good product sourcing,
Yeah.
your own brand and
Yeah.
everything, it would have been a different game altogether.
Absolutely.
Right? But yeah, we were myopic.
Yeah,
We were not thinking about the ecosystem, what could have happened.
yeah,
And the whole idea is just be open to the world.
Yeah.
Keep observing what is happening in the other brands, what is happening with
Yeah.
founders, manufacturing or whatever, right? That is where I think
See, and I'll tell
You
you
guys
where,
missed
and
out.
I'll tell you where that comes from, right? And if you look at, there are different profiles of people who become founders, right? The moment you become, so suppose you work 10 years in the corporate world and then you become the founder, somebody like me, right? Around that time. If you're very young, it's okay, right? If you've just got out of college, have 1 year of work experience, that's fine. But if you've spent some time in structured organizations and then become a founder, suddenly there's a loss of control,
yeah,
right? There's nobody sending you MISs every day.
correct.
You're not, there is no larger team which is driving agenda, right? You almost feel like completely working with your hands tied behind your back. You don't do anything. So what then you start looking at what can you control? The easiest thing to control is looking at your meta ads panel and having random conversations with the agency whether this ad set is right, this audience is right, oh why did you spend 50 rupees more on this,
Correct.
right? It gives you a notional sense of control without any real value coming out of it,
Yeah.
right? Now, broad oversight, absolutely, right? That you need to maintain.
Yes.
but is that really the best use of your time? Possibly not, right? And if you find that your agency partner is not giving you enough depth in execution and strategy, find another one, fair enough.
Yeah.
But let them do their work. Not nothing is going to come out. Like, just because you spend 2 hours on a panel 5 days a week, your brand is not going to grow, your ROS is not going to scale, your CAC is not going to reduce. Nothing will change.
That is not good utilization of your time. Most important. Forget about what will
Yeah.
change, right?
Like, talk to your consumer, talk to your competition consumers, reach out, network with people. I think that's where ideas come in, right? I think
So when we plan things, right, for our clients also,
Yeah.
right, and especially my senior guys, right, my question to them is, spend your time which will have the maximum impact on the business,
absolutely
right?
agreed.
Which may be portfolio, which may be experimentation tomorrow in the
Mm.
performance marketing space, getting creative ideas which will work differently, right? Making those marginal changes on Meta and Google. Yes, I agree, there's a certain hygiene, there's a process for it, and you can keep those checks. But where do you want to invest your time which will create the maximum impact, right? Maybe I should do this landing page.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, these are the things which
Nobody
are
looks
lowest
at.
on the
Nobody looks
radar,
at.
and it's always campaign panel they are opening.
A 0.5% increase in conversion rate
Yeah.
has far more impact on ROAS
Correct.
than anything else, right?
Yeah.
Because from 2 to 2.5, that's a
Yeah.
major jump.
Yes.
Those are impact versus control, right? And
Yeah.
and I understand, right? As in, because I've also been there.
Hmm.
You honestly, you feel like, what do I do? What can I control? Nothing is in my hands.
Yeah.
And it's a difficult thing,
Hmm.
right? But those are I think those are things, right? But
That again comes back to openness and
yeah,
that tuning
Yeah.
you have as a founder, right?
Yeah.
And there are founders we know who just don't intervene.
absolutely.
And they do absolutely fine.
Absolutely.
And they know what they are supposed to deliver.
Yeah.
We know what
Yeah.
we are supposed
Yeah.
to deliver, and it works absolutely smoothly, right?
Yeah. See, another thing, and thoughts are coming to me randomly as we think about it. I always keep saying this. Don't look to make better products.
Yeah.
You can make better products if you know that the category's largest product is absolutely shitty, right? Then you
Yeah.
can make a better product.
Yeah.
But most of the time,
Hmm.
try to make something which is different. And you'll find that different does better than a better product.
Marginal improvements don't help.
Haan,
It doesn't
like-
change anything in the consumer side.
Like for example, and protein, right? Most brands sell a 25 gram. Don't launch a 27 gram protein, yaar.
Hmm.
If I really want to have 27 grams of protein, I'll take a little bit more in the scoop and have it. Not going to be a game changer,
Yes.
right? Like, and in the same category, I don't remember the brand, but somebody launched a clear protein.
Yes.
It's like water, right?
Yeah.
Now that's different, right? And it might give the same protein delivery, but at least the lens and the category changes. Right? And I hate giving examples of Apple,
Hmm.
but the first touchscreen iPhone
Yeah.
was shittier than the BlackBerry, right?
Yes.
It didn't do so many things which the BlackBerry did right? Like typing on it was difficult, as in you
Yeah.
would get the alphabets wrong,
Correct.
wasn't smooth. BlackBerry typing was super smooth,
Hmm.
but it was so dramatically different,
Yeah.
right? You completely reimagined the category, and those are extreme cases.
Yes.
But wherever you can, find opportunities to do things differently, and that also applies to the way you make creative.
Hmm.
If you've seen your competition do a certain creative, don't make a better version of it.
Yeah.
Like, have the lens of, okay, can I do this differently in some way or the other, right? Like, use random visuals,
Hmm.
abstract copy, right?
Correct.
If your entire category is just doing UGC influencer content,
Hmm.
make founder content,
Yep.
right? Whole truth.
Hmm.
Built completely on founder content in the early days.
Yes.
It's just different, and different gets more attention, different gets a better chance of conversion.
It resonates with some people,
Yeah.
right? The whole
And
idea
that's
of
all
a
you
brand
want.
is
Yeah.
you should resonate to a certain set of people, right? Not
Yeah.
everyone.
Yeah.
And then others will follow.
So we've talked about things like PNL, we've talked about things like how to build brand. Okay, another interesting question. I think you are the right person to kind of answer this. When should you start with performance marketing? Because like I have a lot of conversations with early stage founders, right? As in, when should you start doing performance marketing? What is organic versus paid? How does that pan out?
Hmm.
And what should be the realistic expectations from performance? And you can take any category as an example if you want, or just general outlines. What should be the expectations from performance in, let's say, the first 3, 4, 5 months?
Okay, so I keep seeing posts, you should do organic, you should do performance later and things like that, and there's a whole lot of debate going on
Yeah.
LinkedIn and social about it, right?
Yeah.
I think when you say organic social also, right? If tomorrow as a founder you start putting content on LinkedIn, Insta and all that, it's not gonna suddenly reach somewhere.
50 people will see the first post.
Yeah, and so even if you have 1,000 followers,
Yeah.
by some time in 6 months you'll end up at 3,000, 4,000 until you create something above, right?
Yeah.
Which generally is not difficult.
Virality you can't control.
Right?
Virality can't be a strategy.
And the algorithms of Facebook, LinkedIn
Yeah.
and everything is designed to only reach 1%, 2% at
Correct.
max. Right? So even you get a 1 lakh followers, your posts are reaching out 2,000, 3,000 people at best.
Yeah.
Right? Performance marketing for an early stage brand is the easiest way to reach as many people as they can afford. Right? And an early stage may have 1 lakh budget, 10 lakh budget, whatever it is. Right? So,
Okay, just stay with this thought and I'll get technical with you, right? Now, number one, if the idea is to reach more people, why should I be running conversion campaigns and not doing awareness campaigns? As in, where does that line, and
okay.
how does that differentiate?
So, okay, and I'm taking meta example.
Ah.
Even Google applies the same thing.
Hmm.
So your objective is defined in awareness,
Yeah.
which is reach, frequency or video views, etc. You have an objective of traffic, landing page views, and then finally other objectives
Yeah.
like ATC
Yeah.
and conversions, right?
Yeah.
My problem with not starting with say just awareness or traffic is the algo is designed to get you the best, most optimized cost for that.
For that particular objective.
Yes. So if it is videos view, it's likely to show people who are more likely to view videos. If
Yeah.
it's traffic, who are more likely to click. But my objective is to buy.
Yeah.
Then why am I doing the other things, right? Over a time, yes, if I acquire a certain audience, I have a certain sense of things in terms of say I have decent lookalikes or whatever, I'll probably start building on the awareness side of it, which is more narrower and targeted. Or I can go say iPhone only, top cities, top geography.
Yeah.
Take some percentage of awareness. I'm not saying do it, but
Yeah.
traffic I've seen the worst, and I'll give you a number.
Huh.
On any of our conversion campaigns, which is a purchase, the cost per click is 20 to 50 rupees, depending on the category
Okay.
and all that. For that same audience, everything same ad, if I just run a traffic campaign, you'll get a 2 rupees click.
Yeah. So 1/10.
But principally, what you're saying, I'm showing the ad to the same audience.
Yeah.
Why am I not getting the cost per click
Yeah.
at the same rate?
Yeah.
So
Because the
there's a
audience size is large, it's a 50 lakh audience, and within that 50 lakh, there are people who will buy, but there are people who will only click and only view.
So the 80% are
Yeah.
only clicking, and it's optimizing for that click.
It's optimizing for that click.
The algo is designed get me the highest conversion at the lowest cost.
Okay, so the follow up to that is at what is the, and I know that there'll be nuance to category, etc. But at a broad level, what is the threshold of your monthly performance budget, like conversion campaign budget, when you should start investing behind other objectives? And it could be clicks, video views, pure awareness. And what is the ideal percentage like, and what do you recommend, as in how much and when, after what budget?
So say I have acquired 5,000 customers is one. So I have a fair
Yeah.
size of audience which I can
Yeah.
play with.
हाँ, तो 1000 रुपये का कैक 5000 कंज्यूमर एक्वायर हो गए. That's a broad math.
That's one way of looking at
हाँ.
it. Two, at any stage, it's a 15 to 20% depending on the overall budget of awareness that I should put behind, right? But then I should be very narrow with my audiences in awareness. I have a split between Insta and YouTube. I think YouTube is a more better awareness channel because you can target intent there.
Yeah.
So if say you are looking to buy a laptop, right, your search will be what is the best laptop for gaming example. Then if I have a gaming laptop and I show that ad as video, it's still doing an awareness and consideration,
Yeah.
but the chances of getting there is higher than an Instagram account where it is still scrolling and yes, you are a gamer or a viewer, but you may already have a laptop, I don't know.
But so okay, so I'll ask you a simpler question. So let's say that if I'm spending 10 lakhs on conversion campaigns a month, what is my awareness budget? What should be the percentage? You're saying 15-20%.
20%, yes.
So I should do anywhere between 1.5 to 2 lakhs a month on awareness
Yes.
and track it separately, right? It's meant for a different thing. It should not be part of BAU performance campaign measurement. It should be looked at separately
Correct.
with either reach as goal, or let's say if it's a click-based campaign, additional incremental traffic as goal, etc.
Yes. But see, at the end of the day, it is your total ad spend, right? When you were in FMCG, you run a TV ad.
Yeah. A lot
You
of
knew a
TV
reach,
ads.
right?
Yeah,
But how many consumers end up,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
that was
yeah.
different. You could never measure that, right?
yeah.
But the point was, the measure you used to do was, when I run the ad, what was my offtake pre-ad, what
Yeah.
was my offtake post-ad.
Yeah.
And you used to give it a certain period.
Yeah.
Same for awareness. If I run for 1 week, it's not going to give
Absolutely.
me anything. Let's say I run it for 3 months at a 20% budget of my campaigns. Maybe next 3 months I stop it and run 10 lakh behind performance only. But obviously, if I'm scaling, there might be a different game. But then I can measure what happened to my overall business impact.
Yeah.
If it is causing an impact, then you continue with that 20% or even take it further after measuring that impact.
Yeah, agreed. And the last part of this, right? So, what should be a good, let's say, 3-month goal, right? At the end of 3 months, suppose so let's say I have launched a t-shirt brand.
Okay.
My average order value or my t-shirt costs 999 rupees. I have X number of designs, and let's assume that the designs are innovative, otherwise I would not have launched. And I come to you that, okay, run my performance marketing. What will the picture of success look like at the end of 3 months?
Okay.
Just 3 months, right? As in at the end of 3 months, and you are telling me what budget to spend. I'm okay with spending whatever you tell me. If you had to tell me that, okay, we have achieved what we set out to, what does that picture of success look like, and what does failure look like?
Okay. So, first point is, in that 3 months, if my designs are good and t-shirts, I don't need to do a lot of. If it's good, people will click and buy, right?
Yeah.
So, which is you can say, the trial part of it, the cost market, PMF, right? For 3 months, I should, with my budget, and it's 1,000 rupees t-shirt. If I'm able to acquire customers by third month at 700, 800 rupees of CAC, and my only objective is to acquire maximum number of customers, right? That's number one. A very small segment of these people will try a first t-shirt in the first 1 month.
Yeah.
Are they coming back for the second design? What percentage is that, right? Typically, t-shirts you buy every 3 to 6 months, but in this case, if it's 999, people also buy a set of 3. So my repeat is something I look at as a success metric. What percentage? Third important metrics is what kind of reviews and feedback I'm getting on the product, which is more consumer talk or getting reviews, which will tell me how likely they are going to buy again.
So in summary, depending on budget, I should exit month 3 at a 700 rupee kind of CAC. If I can get there, that to me is that these 3 months are successful from a performance standpoint. If in this period, let's say for simplicity, I've acquired 1000 consumers, there is a certain percentage, let's say 10% or whatever that number is.
Yeah,
right?
even if I get 100 repeat orders,
100 people have bought again.
Yeah.
That's a second good success metric.
Yeah.
And the third is, if out of 1000 I've got 100 reviews or whatever that number is, a large percentage of them are positive. That's
not just reviews, I should talk to 100
talk
customers
with-
every month.
Yeah. So
If
talk
I'm acquiring
rating.
300
Yeah,
every
yeah.
month, I should have an answer.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. I think that's a good way to look at this. And then you know how to scale, what to do, right?
Yeah.
I think another area where, from a performance standpoint, right, just pure performance marketing, creative for performance marketing, right? Success rate on performance marketing creatives is extremely low,
Yes.
and it is irrespective of format, right? There are certain accounts which over-index on UGC content where success rate is higher. Certain categories over-index on it, but within those same categories also there are brands with no UGC content also getting similar conversion rates or similar CTRs, right? So I think today in general there is a mindset that UGC does better, which is largely true, not entirely. I don't entirely subscribe to that,
Yeah.
right? But the solve for creative is not there, right? Like if you put out 100 ads, you'll be lucky if you get 10 winners,
Yes.
right? And those 10 winners also have a shelf life. After a certain point, suddenly they stop performing. There's no logic to that, right? As in, algorithmically, yeah, you might come and say that, hey, listen, the audience which vibed with that ad, you've reached all of them, it's exhausted, and beyond that, people want something else, right? These people have so there is some algorithmic logic. That same algorithmic logic was never true for TV, right? As in TV campaigns, one single creative, one single thematic
Ran
ran for a year.
More than a year.
More, in some brands it ran for a year, some brands it ran for 2 years, and you spend a lot more money, right?
Yeah.
60-70% reach, 3+ frequency, those kind of numbers. So the consumer logic on that is not solid, right? The other side to that is that a thematic, when built, is built on the back of solid consumer research.
Sure.
Right? As in, you've done inciting exercise, you've done quant testing of concepts, scripts go into link, animatics go into link,
And yet 95% ads
and
fail.
get 95%
So
fail.
it doesn't
But
change for
yeah.
there also, right?
But at least there is more testing behind it. Okay, so
Sure.
there's more research. You'll do a UNA, you'll find something. So there's more testing. Here we are shooting in the dark, which also means that you have to test more concepts to assume some of them will vibe, some of them will not vibe.
Yeah.
Right? Now, the framework for this in my head is that where I think we get things wrong to some extent is just identifying cohorts, right? As in saying that, okay, and by cohort I mean not a demographic cohort but a psychographic cohort, right? So people doing bodybuilding who want to compete in competitions, that's one cohort,
Sure.
right? Versus people going to the gym to work out every day for general fitness. Now both these are whey protein consumers, but the psychographic cohorts are very different,
Yeah.
right? Now when you will define an audience in Meta, you might give some sort of signals which will index more on one cohort versus the other, but broadly the audience is going to be the same.
Yes.
So the difference comes from your messaging.
Yes.
Now, is it that I go wide, right? So I say that, okay, let me take 3-4 different consumer cohorts, which are psychographically different, start testing some creative, some budget across all 3-4 of them, right? Eventually there'll be some difference which will emerge, right? Some will respond better to your proposition, some will not. Or do I say that, hey, listen, let me build fast, learn fast and fail fast within one cohort, right? I take one narrowly defined cohort, I put out, let's say, 50 creative assets, right? Now, why I'm saying 50 creative assets is that some of these creative assets will just be shit assets, right? You'll be badly executed on creative. Some will be average assets, some will be good assets, and there'll be a few different messaging angles that you will have between them, right?
Sure.
So, is this a better way to do, like build depth versus one, or go slightly wider and then kind of test waters with limited budgets, get early indicators, and then roll into depth?
See, if you know your audience very well, if it is only for bodybuilders with competition, and it is
like for example, if you were launching a protein supplement brand, right? All bodybuilders will have protein supplement, like whey protein.
Yeah.
Right? 27-28 gram protein, bodybuilder
So
will.
that's a huge segment, right?
That's a huge segment. So how do I approach that? Should I do depth or width?
So one, obviously, if I have unlimited budget, I do everything, which is may not be the case, right? But I think, will your creative messaging drastically change for a 28 gram protein cohort? Yes.
Yes.
Right? For say a regular gym goer, it will say something else. For a bodybuilder who's going to compete in a competition, it will say something else, right? I'll go with 2 cohorts.
2.
Because
don't risk
just
on one.
that
Fair
is-
enough.
And within that, obviously, the messaging angles for a core bodybuilder will not change significantly, right? There are standard patterns they follow, certain. So how
Yeah.
do you resonate with them?
Yeah,
There, the
yeah.
creative depth is important. Or what message strikes them, right?
Yeah.
But the larger audience, you test something else because there's also a volume, right? The meta algorithms are designed where you don't know what it is hitting. You are saying code bodybuilder, but
It's going
everyone
somewhere
is
else.
into. Even I
Yeah.
subscribe to some bodybuilder because I know how to.
Yeah.
I want to learn or whatever. It entertains me or
Yeah.
educates me. So, and like you said, okay, starting point. Our assumption was there's a 15 lakh households which we are targeting.
Yes.
Right. You go on any meta audience size today in India,
Hmm.
nothing is less than 1 crore.
Yeah. The narrowing it is.
You narrow it further
Yeah.
with engage, shopper, city, whatever
Yeah.
filters you put.
Yeah.
It still goes to about 50 lakhs, 30 lakhs. That's
Yeah.
again a huge number
Yeah.
for you. But the point is the algorithm is designed in a certain way. कि what creative is resonating with what people, it's showing it to them. So ultimately it becomes a strength of creative than going with audience right now.
So in summary, like if you look at the broad theme of whatever we are saying, right, it's doing few things, right? Lesser audience, right?
Yeah.
Don't go too wide in terms of audience. We also said that lesser portfolio. Don't try to market 10 different things. Market one or two, find heroes there. Lesser platforms. Don't do everything. SEO,
Yeah.
Meta, this, that, right? Even on organic social, don't try to do YouTube also, and Instagram also, and Snapchat also, and Twitter also, and LinkedIn also. Build them. So essentially, like the first year or so for the brand is more choices of what not to do versus what to do, right? I mean, if you just have to boil it down to one simple thing, fewer things done differently with more depth and better consumer connect just increases the probability of success.
Yeah, so if you are in for the longer run,
Yeah.
you have money to sustain.
And manage PNL well.
Yeah, right. Then, okay, so if you come back to me and say, okay, I want to launch a protein brand, for the next 3 years I've parked 50 lakh rupees. I'm okay to sustain on that.
Yeah.
And this is what I want to achieve, right? Then the channels become narrower, the proof of concept becomes stronger, and once you find the formula, then you spread it to other channels, right?
Yeah.
But if you say, okay, my leeway is only 1 year, I want to reach a certain volume, right? Then you also need distribution. You need to do a certain width of things because I have 50 lakhs, I have to spend it in 1 lakh, 1 year, and I want to do. And it becomes important for you to do Amazon, maybe get into quick commerce and everything.
I was going to ask that question also. There's always a controversial question, right? So, and I'll tell you where I've heard this a lot in categories which are lifestyle, right? Home decor, fashion, footwear, anywhere where there's a higher price point. Founders always come back and say that we only want to build D2C because marketplace seems like a brand dilutive platform. Okay. I've heard that in a lot of conversations, right? I know what my view on this is. What is your view of this? As in, so for example, if I was launching a premium, let's say premium brand of dinnerware, would you do a marketplace only launch? Would you do a marketplace D2C launch? And quick commerce तो चलो entry नहीं मिलेगा, but and within marketplace, would it be horizontal, vertical, or only horizontals, or only select verticals? What is the framework for that?
Okay, I always work on basic fundamentals in life, right? The idea is you have to be where the consumer is, right? If you ask me and my wife and I always have this discussion, why do you tell me to buy from D2C brands?
Yeah.
It's a hassle to return, hassle to track. If there's an issue, you have to email them. There's no customer care and all that, right? What does Amazon does? Seamless, right? So the consumer experience is seamless. The ecosystem, logistics, and everything end to end works absolutely fine. Now, if your consumer wants to shop, and again, FMCG, retail, modern trade, things are in modern trade. Customer has to be there. You have to be available where the customer is. Number one. Instagram everyone is using, so you are reaching through ads. YouTube everyone is reaching, you are through. But you cannot decide where they buy. They have to be there, and it's easy for them to buy, right? So, and I'm not saying do not do Amazon, not only do D2C or anything, whether you are premium or not, it doesn't harm you to be available on Amazon.
Yeah.
If my customer sees my ad on Instagram and say I want to buy ABC dinnerware on Amazon, it is the second or third most searched platform in the world
Yes.
with intent to buy.
Yes.
Much higher than Google.
Yeah.
So
It's I think it's the most searched platform, no?
for
For
purchase,
purchase, yeah.
yes, but otherwise YouTube, Google, and
Yeah, and then
Amazon.
Yeah.
So if my wife wants to buy this kitchenware after seeing that, she'll go in on Amazon and say ABC kitchenware.
Yeah.
On spending on that branded keyword is not a huge cost for me, but
Not
it
at all.
ensures that
Yeah.
the customer knows I am available on Amazon, Flipkart, whatever. Your advertising can be heavy towards D2C because that's also creating the demand.
Yeah, and I do, and I'm completely with you, right? Now, as in, so in my head, I would structure this as one basic principle: more distribution is always better than less distribution.
Yes.
Right? There is no cost of there's no incremental cost of distribution on digital channels.
Yes.
It's just setting up an account and getting your listings done.
Correct.
Unlike retail, right? Where you
We are
have to
not
physically-
saying allocate money to media on there.
So
It is
number
limited.
first principle is that. Second principle is, no matter how premium your brand is, Amazon's brand equity is still more than yours, right? And it'll always be like,
And every premium brand sells on Amazon.
if you
Is
can buy-
Samsung saying I'll not launch this phone
yeah,
or
if I
TV
can buy
on
an
Amazon.
iPhone from Amazon, why can't I buy a 2,000 rupee dinner set? Why can't? Yeah,
It is a big retail store for a customer,
absolutely.
which sells from
Yeah.
minimum to highest.
interesting. So we should do this more often. These are good conversations, and I think, and the more you keep talking, the more you keep thinking, more questions are coming to my head all the time.
Yeah, this is the
But-
first time for us, but I think
Yeah, we should do this more.
we'll do it, and hopefully someone finds it useful.